it's Magdalena here. Thank you for watching the video. I would like to say I'm very, very grateful that I have an amazing strength and conditioning coach who is actually going to talk about the wonderful clients that he's trained and also a couple of the things that he would like to add to the way he's trained and the way he would have liked to have trained. So here's Dieter Roylance.
Thanks, Magdalena. So I suppose I'll start with, I've coached athletes from all realms, from winter to summer to professional sports here in Australia and overseas, as well as I've coached celebrities and entertainers from around the world. The one thing that I've always found though is that more so than, or just as much as having great strength programs and nutrition programs, is doing stuff with their mindset. What happens is that if you can't get someone to believe into what you're doing, then it's really hard to get them to get great results. It really would be wonderful to have had someone like yourself that could help me along the way and take some pressure off me trying to do everything at once. But yeah, what I've really found is that mindset really plays a big part, even from Olympic athletes to general population. And I know I've done a couple of sessions of yours and they've been fantastic, and it's really helped me see a different side and some of the things I could have done differently. But it's really something that I think people don't really understand in the way to approach someone in these different manners. And especially I know your niche is in sports performance, and sports hypnosis is a really, in my opinion, really not taken advantage by a lot of athletes. And it's something that I've definitely been encouraging my athletes to do in the future. So it's something that, you may want to add a little bit about sports hypnosis since you are the expert.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and it's so encouraging to know that coaches like yourself, and hopefully there's more coaches that can understand the benefit of the mindset, and the value that I can give with switching that belief to helping the athletes to be the best athlete they can be. I'd like to ask you just one thing. When you've had your clients, what was the number one mindset that you would have thought that, perhaps?
Well, it really depends on who you're talking about. So if you're talking about athletes, I've had a lot of people with fear of failure.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of athletes that on the other spectrum of fear of failure, they just won't stop and they just push and push and push, and often it is to their detriment that they don't know how to stop. So their mindset is, I must do more, I must do more. When it comes to clients and entertainers, I've had clients that are just not willing to put in the work sometimes, or afraid to put in the work, or just find other excuses. So their mindset's not really set on their goals, to be more specific. When it comes to entertainers, it's usually anxiety.
Yeah.
Even though that I've trained some of the biggest people in the world in the entertainment industry, they're still anxious to either get in front of the camera or get on stage, and when people look back and go, wow, these guys are so successful, yet they have no idea the anxiety that they have before they actually go on stage or, get in front of the camera. And then when they have to do press as well. There's a different array of mindsets out there, but really in sports, it's that fear of failure that, someone's not willing to put themselves out there. So I've had athletes that, are too scared to say, I want to go and be an Australian champion. I want to go and be an Olympic gold medalist. I have had others that have got a great mindset, that have put themselves out there, and Grant Hackett's one of them, where he knew from a very early age that he wanted to be an Olympic gold medalist in the 1500 metres from the age of 14. And he knew all Kieran Perkins splits, and that was his main focus, and he won 2 golds and a silver in 3 Olympics in the 1500 metres. His mindset's very different, whereas other people are just happy to make the team, and then they're not letting anyone down if they don't win and if they don't put it out there, so everyone's just happy they've made the team, which I've struggled with as a coach, trying to help them. So there's probably some stuff that you could
Sure.
help me with in the future about me getting over
Yeah,
my
that's
wanting
so
to kill someone and because they won't work hard enough. But
yes, yeah, and that's so true. Athletes are inspired by their coaches so as well. So absolutely, you're right, Dieter. You know, the coaches will also need to have their beliefs and their barriers and what's been blocking them to be the best coach they can be as well to their athlete. Looking at both the athletes, just going back to the athletes, once you peel off that onion layer, that's what I like to call it, because once you peel off one layer, there's always something else hidden. So if you peeled off the layer of fear, do you feel like there's more to it?
well, I think one thing most people don't realise is that athletes aren't always highly motivated. They all have coaches, and if they didn't have coaches, very few athletes will get out of bed and do the training by themselves. Yeah, when you do peel it off, they do have that fear, but when you do peel back, they can always sort of have that backing where they go, well, the coach didn't quite get it right, he didn't quite take me the right way, or something went wrong in my preparation because of this. Those sort of athletes have that fear of failure. They've always got, well, I've got this little backup plan of, I got sick, or I had to miss this session because I got injured, or when you're looking at it, it comes to that point of view that these people really, or these athletes, they take this sort of line of approach to keep themselves, you know, in the clear if they do fail.
Yes.
And, you know, 99% of them will, because they don't have the mindset that they want to win, whereas there's a whole group of others that do want to win.
Yes.
So it becomes one of those things that they're never really going to make it by accident.
Yes.
And everyone talks about, oh, it's overnight success. Yeah, overnight success for 15 years.
Yeah. And speaking of overnight success and you know, over 15 years, so that's a long time. So part of that, do you see consistency as well being part of issues with athletes?
Consistency is a big problem. A lot of athletes can climb their way to be top 10, top 5, number 1. It's the hardest part is not getting there, it's actually staying there.
Yes.
Putting in that work, so you get to a certain point, then you become a target. Everybody wants to beat you if you become number 1. You're the one person that everyone's focusing on chasing. So yeah, it's great to get there, and you know, huge congratulations and kudos to people that do actually get to number 1.
Yeah.
But when you get there, you see so many of them drop off. You rarely see champions and longevity, and you can go through so many different sports to look at the history of it and go, well, really, how many times did people win 5 championships? How many times did people win 4 gold medals? Or, you know, it's a really hard thing to keep on top of, because they get there and they go, wow, this is so awesome. And they lose that motivation and that will, and that they forget the training that goes involved to get there, and they all of a sudden think, well, I'm in the spotlight now, this is super cool, I don't need to train as hard. Whereas all the competitors are about going, well, I really want to beat him next time, so that's their focus.
Hypnosis can be great then, you know, to keep that consistency, to help with the failure. It's just not, you know, with athletes, they are a different beast, right? So it's not just the once that you can, one session. We talked about there's layers. So even though hypnosis is wonderful for certain things, and it could only take just, you know, maybe one session, but with so many things that you have to deal with, the athletes have to be aware that it's not just going to be the one session.
Yeah, I think it's, and especially, I think people have got to understand what sports hypnosis is, and as the stuff that you do is more future-paced. What they're actually getting is understanding the steps that they have to take. And, you know, even as a coach, I'd find out where they wanted to get to, then we'd work backwards. And I understand you do the same thing with your athletes. So it's one of those things that, you know, people don't realise the history of it, that it's been going on in the East Germans, the Russians, a lot of science behind it, and a lot of athletes have done it in the past. Yet in this country, it's still a very underutilised modality. everyone's going to these different things and trying to do something different, but they're forgetting that their mind plays such a big part when they turn up to play or competition. It's such a thing. Even, if I go back to swimming, the fastest swims are always done in the semi-finals because you've got 16 athletes desperate to make that final of 8 people. So what happens is everyone's going all out and there's nothing sort of on the line. They've got nothing to lose by putting themselves on the line. But when it comes to the final, it comes down to which athlete doesn't screw up the most. So especially in sprint races, it's really, you've got to put it all together, but they don't swim the fastest times in the final, they're always in the semis.
Right. And I'd love to hear, now that we have heard, the wonderful results it could have had if you were to go back in time with your athletes, could you share a bit of how you felt after your session?
Well, it really goes into the training and the mindset. A lot of people have this mindset, and I've got a little bit of a crazy mindset of hurting myself all the time and continuing to play and train injured, which is catching up to me at my age. Understanding my limitations so I can get to my goals of what I want to achieve, physically and athletically still, without killing myself and hurting myself. So instead of me wanting to play or train every single time injured, it's now helping me back off to remember what I really want to achieve at the end goal.
I'm glad that Dieter shared that, because I was mentioning to him how I could help, because I had a previous client with the same issue, that these athletes that get injured, they seem to hold themselves back because of this injury, because of maybe rehashing another injury or maybe the same injury. Is that right? It
depends on the athlete.
Yeah.
Usually once I'm on court or on the field, I'm there to go.
Yes.
You sort of feel it in the warm-up, and then once the whistle goes or the siren goes, you're like, okay, it's game time.
Yeah.
Usually after the game and the siren goes, I can't walk, but that's in the past now. But they're the sort of things that some athletes just can't get back. They play with that forever fear of hurting themselves. And they're usually athletes that haven't really had many injuries or just don't know how to test themselves, because everyone's going to get certain niggles and certain pains.
Yes.
But it's really one of those things that you have to understand your body more, and unfortunately a lot of athletes don't understand their body. They're not educated well enough about their body and how it works.
What they do is just win and get in
there. Yeah, they want to win, but some people just happy to, especially in team sports, they're happy just to hang on and just sort of be there, where not contribute as much. So that's a whole different topic on mindset and the way different athletes think.
Can I just ask you just to talk about teams, a team athlete like soccer, because I know that there has been some athletes in the soccer or football, some people would like to call it, that have had hypnosis, right?
Yes. Well, hypnosis, most people that have reported it actually think it's wonderful and actually get a lot out of it. So it's one of those things that people are still hesitant to do something that they think is unknown. But as I said, it's been going on for decades now, and people have been using it very successfully, and the smart athletes are probably keeping quiet about it because they want their advantage and they don't want. So that's another thing that you find with athletes is, once an athlete finds an advantage, very rarely willing to share that with another athlete, because it's competitive, especially in team sports. People don't want, their teammate. They're all fighting for spots, they're all fighting for contracts, they're all fighting for that paycheck.
So true.
So they're not going to tell everyone else. If it's brought in by the team, it's a different thing. And you'll still find people that will say yes and say no. I
have done some research, and you can research yourself some of the athletes that have openly said that they've used hypnosis. There was a football player previously that has been publicly mentioning that he had used hypnosis. I think you're a big fan of Michael Jordan, and
Yes.
he's used it.
Kobe Bryant used it, Mike Tyson's used it. A lot of athletes, high-profile athletes, have actually used it.
But they didn't mention it at the time, did they? Like
Well,
you just
people try to keep it
Yeah.
a little bit secret.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's a perfect example because his trainer rang every single player on the Bulls in the late 80s, early 90s, except for Michael Jordan, because he didn't think he'd say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Michael Jordan wanted to know, and this is a perfect example of the competitive nature. He wanted to know why he wasn't asked, and he ended up being the only one that trained with this guy. There's so much complexity and mindset in sport that people don't understand, and how competitive it is, and how some people are willing to go to the ends of the earth to win. Some people are just happy to be there.
Yeah.
And others sort of just pretend they want to be there, or
Yes.
it's a tough thing, and it's frustrating as an athlete.
Do you think that's a self-sabotage thing?
Yeah, there's definitely self-sabotage when it comes to athletes, but they're the ones that don't last very long. The average player in the NFL to the NBA to the NHL to Major League Baseball can be anywhere from 2 to 4 years. That's
Wow.
it. So there's not a whole lot of, well, there is a whole lot of players that show huge potential,
Yes.
yet never live up to it.
Yes.
And that's a really big thing in
And Brady
professional
has
sports.
been in there for so long, hasn't he?
And Tom Brady was told that he was too slow, too weak, couldn't throw a spiral,
Yeah.
Unfit, and now he's the greatest quarterback and probably
Crazy.
NFL player of all time.
Yeah.
But he's got the mindset of understanding the game and being a student of the game and keeping his body in shape, keeping his mind in shape.
Yes.
You don't hear him being reckless in the news and
Yeah,
getting
that's
picked
so
up for drunk and disorderly or drugs or
Yeah.
beating people up or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a big thing in sports hypnosis. It's a really positive thing, and thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you
For a
so
chat.
much. Yeah. Just to end this, how would you describe your session just quickly? How did you feel after it?
You feel wonderful afterwards. It's very, very easy to go through. There's nothing that's confronting. You come out feeling very relaxed, but you're actually then hyped to go and do something as well. So your motivation levels increase as well, even for someone that's got high motivation to do things. So it's a wonderful thing, and I'll definitely be referring my athletes for sports hypnosis with you, Magdalena.
Great. Thank you, Dieter, for coming and having a chat with myself and my audience. So thank you very much. And if you want to know more about sports hypnosis, please just DM me, make a comment on comments below, and I'd just love to have a chat with you. Okay, thank you. Bye.